Welcome in, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our webinar today. We are going to have a very stimulating conversation with Amy Gaffney, and she's going to talk to us about back to school transition. And I have posted a link in our chat box here on Zoom that gives you access to that QR code. If you are able to use your device and use that QR code, we would greatly appreciate it. That is what is going to pop up a sign-in, a survey, and then you'll be able to also print off a certificate of attendance today. But it's really important that you do fill that information out for us, as we are a nonprofit organization and we do rely heavily upon that information that we receive for that. My name is Jill Summerlot, and I would like to introduce my co-host, and that is Michelle Arcatana. And she is actually going to introduce our lovely host, Amy Gaffney. I'm going to let Michelle take it away from here, and I will be monitoring out onto Facebook Live.
Thank you, Jill. I really appreciate it. So, as Jill was saying, welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinars on Thursday. My name is Michelle Alcantara, and I'm the Spanish Communication Specialist for InSource. For those of you that are new, I want to explain a little bit about what we do here at InSource. So, we are a nonprofit organization. Our role is to, help families and other organizations that assist students with disabilities to understand. The process and the options under Article 7. So now we do not provide legal advice. We are here to empower families and, provide them with that knowledge and help build relationships with, their schools and other organizations as well. And as Jill said, today we will be listening to Amy Gaffney about back to school transition. So this webinar, and I bet Amy's going to, talk a little bit more in depth, but, we're going to talk about how they help families start the school year with confidence, right? To learn strategies, to ease the transitions, to reduce the anxieties and establish supportive routines for them, right? So Amy, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate that you're taking the time to, provide this amazing information. School's almost starting. Parents are preparing. And so I think this is a great way to, start the school year, right? So I will give it over to you, Amy, so you can start your webinar. If anybody has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box in the comment section, and Amy or Jill or myself, we can answer those for you, okay? So yeah, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm going to share my screen now. Oh,
is that mine?
There you go. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. There we are. All right. So are you seeing my PowerPoint? Yeah. Okay. Jill and I said, I want to make sure you're seeing the right screen. So
yeah,
so many choices these days that we can
share.
I know. All right, everyone. Well, welcome. Thanks so much if you're joining us live. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know that this is being recorded. And so if you're watching this, later on, and really, this is something that I think that could be applicable through the school year. So sometimes we think about the big transition back to school, but also think about that's back to school after Christmas break. So if, some of these things you're like, oh man, that would have been great to do. I hope I'm going to give you some ideas for next year. You can start planning, in June for next year. And then even thinking about those transitions back from Christmas break or from spring break, a lot of these ideas will be applicable then too. So my name is Amy Gaffney. I am an educational consultant with the Indiana Resource Center for Autism and Hands in Autism Interdisciplinary Training and Resource Center. Both of the centers are housed at the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community at Indiana University. So that is where you can find all of us and all of our resources. If you Google IIDC or Indiana Institute on Disability and Community, you can certainly find a wealth of information there. But I come to this presentation as a professional who's worked in schools, and as an SLP, I've worked in private clinics and in homes for many, many years. So I'm a professional, but I'm also a parent right along with all of you of a child who has multiple disabilities. And so we have to think about a lot of these things as we're preparing for our family as well to have that transition back into the school year. So I'm glad you're here with us. Transitions they bring a lot of feelings, right? A mix of excitement and stress for both our children and for families, the parents and caregivers. And so today I really want to focus on some practical, very realistic strategies that you can use at home over the next whether it be a couple of weeks or maybe next week. I don't know, some schools are they're starting earlier and earlier, but over the next few weeks, just to help make that transition a little bit smoother and really focus on making it a little more predictable for our kids. Whether your child is entering preschool or elementary school or middle school, high school, or even into a transitional program, returning to school in general just brings a lot of change. So, like I said, we're going to discuss practical strategies that you can begin to use right away to support that successful transition. And you don't have to, I'm not going to talk about like overhauling everything we do at home, right? There's some little things that we can try that will help everyone to be more successful. And so the goal is really going to be to focus on small but very intentional steps that will help everyone reduce stress and increase predictability for our kids. So many families, often when we think about the start of school, we think about that first day, right? That's the day that's marked in red and circled on our calendar. But in reality, successful transitions begin weeks beforehand through lots of preparation and practice. So we think about getting ready for school, meaning getting ready for those new routines or maybe some routines that we just kind of have fallen out of practice with. We are getting ready for those expectations that school brings. We want to have confidence in that in returning to school, and by doing that, we want to make sure that we are prepared. And I'm going to give you some things to think about as you prepare for this school year. And then again, some of the things you're going to say, "Oh man, that window has already closed," but that's okay. It's something to think about and talk with your school team about throughout this school year to say, hey, let's try this next summer or next at the end of the school year. Sometimes we actually in May or even April, we're preparing for what the summer might look like for our kids. If you're talking about some ESY options or something to help kids get prepared, then to have that smooth transition back into August. So some of these things will just be ideas and tips to think about for the future. But why are these transitions hard? Because we all kind of, everyone's like, oh, back to school. And then, ooh, that brings a lot, right? It's heavy. So what's causing some of those challenges? And we know that change requires a lot of energy, right? Change requires a child to process a lot of new information and we have to adapt to new things. So our kids and sometimes us as caregivers and family members, we have to adjust to new people. You might be going to a new school who has a whole new set of teachers and principals and a secretary and new contact information. And you're trying to figure all of that process out if you're new to the school or to the school district. But our kids are also trying to adjust to new people, maybe just a new classroom because, it's another grade and it's just a new makeup of new kids sometimes. There's new spaces. They usually aren't, they may not be in the same room all the time. So sometimes it's that time of the year or that time in your school career that you're going to be moving to a new classroom. There's new classrooms every year. Maybe you're going into middle school and now all of a sudden you have multiple classrooms. It's not like elementary school where you only had, one or two classrooms you were in. Now you're going to have many more classrooms, or in high school, there's many more classrooms. Thinking about new routines that you're going to be learning and new expectations that are coming with this new school year. Returning to school is an executive functioning challenge. There are so many things to think about. So it's not just about the academics. The academics will come, but there are so many other challenges that also we can call them demands or just skills that are necessary to have a really smooth transition into the new school year. So we're ready to start learning new academic skills. And thinking about some of those new or those executive functioning skills that we must put into place, children must remember a lot of new things, right? You got to remember where your new classroom is. You've got to remember to start leaving the house with that backpack, right? Because it may be out of practice with that. We have to remember new teachers' names and new faces, and we have to organize, right? That's a big demand. The older we get, the more organization sometimes is required for kids. We have to start shifting our attention a lot more. So we've been at home, we've been focused on what we maybe really enjoy doing, or we've been at summer camp for a few months now, and we've kind of had our attention on more of those bigger outdoor activities, more of the fun kind of things that we like to do. Maybe we've had more attention to our screen time, to our video games for a little while, but now we're back to shifting attention between the teacher, the smart board, our books, our Chromebook, our papers, all of our school supplies. There's a lot of shifting attention that is required in school. We've got to think about planning a little bit more, planning for the next day, planning for getting our homework done. There's a little bit more waiting that's involved sometimes, especially at the beginning of the school year when everyone's trying to get reacclimated and where teachers are trying to, take attendance and learning new kids' names and teaching these new routines. So we have to kind of wait, and maybe the pace slows down just a little bit more at the beginning. And for some of our students, that's a challenge to just be able to wait and to kind of sit for the moment until everything is gathered around them. And then problem solving, right? So if I'm in a new school, gosh, I have to remember where's the bathroom and thinking about, well, when's a good time to go to that bathroom, right? Because that bathroom's on the other side of the school, although I like it a lot better. It doesn't echo quite as much. Maybe the problem solving is, where do I keep my lunchbox this year? Where do I put my cubby? Like, where's my cubby? Where do I hang up my coat? Where do I put things? So we have to problem solve to figure out a lot of what's happening around us in our school building and in our classrooms. Before we even start school, sometimes kids, they're sensing that even if we haven't started talking about it a lot. Although, like with my daughter, she's constantly pulling up the calendar to look to see when that first day is at school. But sometimes the kids just start to sense the summer starting to wind down, and behavior often communicates some of the stress that our kids are feeling even before they're able to verbalize it. So thinking about, sometimes stress doesn't always look like I'm worried about something, but you could also see things like maybe some more refusal starting to happen with your kids. You might notice that their behavior is changing a little bit. They might really become a little bit more rigid, may not be as flexible as you've noticed, like maybe at the beginning of the summer. And sometimes we become more rigid because we're trying to hold on to that control, that safety that we feel in our environment, because we know things are about to change and we're getting nervous about school. And so we really want to hold tight to, on Thursday we're going to get pizza. Pizza is our Thursday night place. And so we really want to, now all of a sudden we got to have that, or where's my cup? They're worried about maybe a favorite cup. And it wasn't such a big deal earlier, but we're starting to need to feel that safety a little bit more. You might have a few more meltdowns that you notice. Kids are getting more or less tolerant maybe of some of those changes that normally they could roll with. Some kids might get quiet. You might see some withdrawal or that increase in dependence, right? I've been hearing, the phrase every once in a while, I'll miss you, Mom. I'll miss you so much. I'm like, I'm just going to be gone for an hour or two. I'm not even going to be gone for the whole day. But we're starting to have that sense of, okay, there's going to be this transition coming up. I'm going back to school, and then I won't see you all day long if some of your kids have been around you a lot more during the summer. So thinking about if you start to see some behavioral changes, maybe that is a sign that you want to start talking about some of these bigger feelings that the kids are having, or maybe it is because they're getting nervous about school. And this is a great time to start implementing some of these strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you today, so that we can kind of help alleviate some of that stress and worry that our kids have. The good news is that a lot of transition stress can be reduced through preparation. The more we're prepared about something, the more confident we feel. And so therefore then some of that stress will hopefully, leave pretty quickly. So here are some ways that we can help kids be prepared. And building predictability is a huge one, and I'll probably spend the majority of my time today talking about strategies that we can use to build predictability for our kids. Because predictability builds confidence. So if there's one idea to hold on to from today, it's that predictability builds the confidence our kids need. When children know what's coming next, their anxiety decreases and they are more available to learn and to participate and to feel prepared. When children know what to expect, their anxiety is decreased, their participation increases, their independence will start to increase. They'll be able to do more on their own, and their confidence is going up. So, how can we help them with feeling more prepared and knowing that the world's a little more predictable for them? So, one idea is create a countdown before the start of school. That might look like a countdown chain where you take their favorite colors of paper or something. You can even use scrap paper around your house and just start folding them around and making little links and make paper chains. And then every day you can take a chain link off until it is time to go back to school. You can also have a calendar where you mark it on the calendar and you can kind of have a countdown on the days. Maybe you even number the days as a countdown. You could use a sticker chart. You can put a sticker on if kids like to put stickers on the chart every day. Oh, we're one day closer to the start of school, so we're going to add some stickers, and then maybe you'll have a special dinner or something at the first day of school, just to celebrate that beginning. So there's lots of ways that we can count down whatever's meaningful for your student. Here's an example of just a pocket chart that I got at the Dollar Tree. They have these. They're usually wrapped up, and sometimes I think usually you get them in the school section. But then you can just print off like using colored paper if you have it, or you can hand write things on paper. Or you can get some construction paper and just cut it to the right size and put it in the pocket chart and make a little calendar that you can hang on the wall. And then you can make it for the whole month. I'm a big fan of using calendars in general. That it's never too early to start showing a calendar for the family, for your kids to see it at home. But you can notice on this calendar that like these blue squares, if you can see those are the first blue one, which would be the 12th. That would be like the first day of school. So that's what's written on that blue piece of paper, is it's the first day of school. And then you can see. I'll be honest. This picture was one that we used in our home, and the date on it is August 14th, 2020, and this is now 2026, and we still use this type of a calendar at home because it just works for our needs. I can write little notes on the back of the numbers or on the front of the numbers. I can color code, so we can put lots of things for that is what my daughter needs to know about on her calendar in her pocket charts. When we think about building predictability, we want to think about practicing routines. So practice is very powerful. So you want to make sure you're doing some dress rehearsals before school starts to help children experience the routine in advance, which will reduce surprises on the first day. So maybe you're going to do a morning dress rehearsal where you're starting to get up at the time that you're going to normally get up for school. You're going to kind of start going through those routines of getting dressed and brushing teeth or taking a shower in the morning because you don't have as much time. Now there's an end date or an end time because that bus is going to show up at a certain time in the morning. Maybe you've had a little bit more flexibility during the summer. So you want to make sure you're kind of starting to practice. Okay, we got to have our breakfast eaten by a certain time. Or maybe we need to start packing that backpack and hanging it on the chair so that the kids will be ready to go for their routine of backpack and shoes on and whatever else you need to go out the door. Maybe you're going to start having your kids start making their lunches. Maybe they haven't done that this summer, but if they're a kiddo who likes to bring their lunch to school, you could start practicing just a couple of days a week that they are getting back in the habit of packing a lunch. And then you could maybe go somewhere, go to a park, or so hot, maybe maybe you can go somewhere indoors, but practice, kind of what is that going to feel like when we get back to school, eating out of our lunchbox again. Practicing those bedtime routines. That's a big important one. Kids sometimes don't have they don't have the bedtime routine that they have, during the summer. We're a little more lax on that. But we want our kids to get back into the sleep pattern. And if that takes your child a little bit longer to transition into, if you've changed it over the summer, so making sure we're going to bed a little bit earlier because we're going to be waking up a little bit earlier. Are there certain things that you do on a regular basis to make sure that you're helping your kids wind down a little bit more? Maybe not so much screen time right before bedtime. Maybe we're starting to read some books, perhaps reading books about school. Pick if you're, whatever your kids like. If you can find some, if you have younger kids, like the Junie B. Jones storybooks and things where she's going to school for the first time or something. There's a lot of really fun back to school books that you can get for kids, but think about how you can start setting maybe a more purposeful bedtime routine. And then transportation practice, just loading up, getting in the car, driving to the school, just to practice what does that feel like? How much time is it going to take? How much time is it going to take in traffic? And then knowing we're going to have to allow a little bit longer time in traffic when everybody is descending upon the school. So all of those routines that you want to create, make sure that you start practicing them a couple of weeks in advance. Here's an idea of using some morning checklists or little schedules for your kids. So you can get these online. These were just Google images and that I found, or you can create your own with Google images. But thinking about if they're going to go through and they're going to wake up and they're going to make their bed or wash their face, and then kids can either put an X on those things, or you can put like a sticky note over it to show that you finished that activity. That can be really helpful. The morning checklist there about eating breakfast and then putting your dishes in the sink and then use the bathroom or brush your teeth. And then they can put little X's, or maybe they put a little sticker on each page in the morning, just to help them start to see the steps to those routines and make sure that they are being as independent as possible, but also know what the expectations are. This is something that I teach during the school year to teachers how to set up in their classrooms, but also how parents can set these up at home. And I call them little work systems, or you could call them an activity system. But basically, it's a way that we can organize materials in our home to help our kids work through a routine. These are especially helpful for kids maybe who don't get either a lot of meaning from the pictures and things. They don't like a lot of pictures, or they just need the objects to show them what to do. It's a really fast way to set up something. So on the left side there in that picture is in the bathroom. There are just three little baskets, and one basket has a toothbrush in it, one basket has a washcloth, and one basket has a comb. And so you have that what you need them to do. They take the item out of the basket, they do it, they move it over to the other side of the sink, and they just kind of go from left to right and flow through the different hygiene activities they need to do for the morning. The other one is more of a picture-based plan. So use the bathroom, wash your hands, wash your face, brush your teeth, brush your hair, and then there's a little picture that says go to your bedroom and get dressed. So those are some different little systems that you can create for your kids to help them with routines. Another thing to think about is practicing those afternoon routines. So if you have younger kids, or even frankly some of the teenagers that I know who are kind of getting used to taking some naps in the afternoon, and we know that that's not exactly how we're going to be able to continue things once school starts, maybe a certain time during the day you start practicing what that afternoon routine might look like. So think about what time you'll leave school and then you'll get home, and then is that the time you can have like a smaller snack? You might get some break time, and then maybe start to, even if you're not in school yet, you won't have homework time, but you might have some chores to do at home or do some work and then have your playtime. So kids are kind of getting used to that flow in the afternoon before dinner time of what an afternoon routine might look like. We want to think about previewing. One of the simplest strategies is just walking through the day with your kids. So the key though is repetition. So children often need or to see or hear things many times before this feels familiar and safe to them. So if we are just sitting down and talking through what's going to happen at the start of school, if that's helpful for your kids, you can talk through what the school day was or what it will be like. You can reminisce about what it was like. Just kind of remember when you were in school. Remember you loved going to music class. I wonder what your first special will be of the day this year. You want to give, though, just the right amount of information to your child. So I know some kiddos can get really stressed out by so much, either so much language and just talking so much about things, but also talking about things too that are too far away yet, that and it will start to stress them out a little bit more. So you know your children. If they need a couple of days of prep before school starts versus 2 weeks before prep, do what is important or what's helpful for your child. There are some things that my child probably needs to know a month in advance, and there's some things that I probably just need to let her know about maybe a day ahead of time or 2 days ahead of time or just that morning, because otherwise she will just kind of perseverate and get stuck on worrying about certain things. So you know the amount of information and the timing that will work best for your kids. But at some point, you do want to think about walking through those routines step by step, just practicing. And even if you don't talk a lot about the what ifs of this new school year because you don't know all those details and you don't want to give incorrect information, you can start talking about things at home and what home is definitely going to be like. We want to think about making the unknown known. So remember practicing, maybe doing a school visit, right? So we just kind of are getting out of our car. If you have a car rider, we're parking or however you would enter the building, and you do a quick visit to the school. Or maybe if you can't get into the school, if you have a playground that's available, you could go there a couple of times and have your kids play on the playground just to start, saying, remember the schools, or this is the school playground, this is what you loved swinging or something. Let's go swing for 5 or 10 minutes or something at the school. You might want to drive the bus route if you happen to know what that is or a general idea of it. Start driving in those directions. Look at photos. Go through your last year's yearbook. Look at any photos you had from the school year that would help your kids kind of get back in the school mindset. Read some school themed books. That's always helpful. I'm a big fan of taking pictures. Nowadays, with your phone, it's so easy. You'll have 1,000 pictures in 2 seconds. But you can use those pictures. You can make flip books. You can have them professionally printed. You can just make them on your own. You can put them on the iPad, and you could just put a file of pictures on your iPad and just flip through them that way. You don't even have to print anything out. But taking pictures of everything. So the outside of the school, this is where I say, sometimes if you're planning ahead, so maybe throughout the school year, you can take a few pictures when you're inside the school, like the cafeteria, or if you go to something, an activity in the gym, you'll have some of those pictures to remind your child of what the gyms looks like and things. Maybe it's on a choir concert evening or something, you take pictures. But then also thinking about in May, you can ask the teachers, like, could you take pictures of next year's classroom if they know what next year's classroom is going to be? Could you take a picture of next year's teacher and send it to me so that we have all summer to start looking at that picture and saying, look, this is Mrs. Smith. She's going to be your teacher, in the next school year. Sometimes some of those things we just don't know in May who your teacher is going to be. Lots of changes happen. That's just a reality of working in schools and in education. But there's some things that we do know are going to be a sure thing for the next school year. And so we're going to take as many pictures of things as possible. You want to think about building independence with your kids, because the more independence they have, the more confident they can be in what they're doing. And it's also going to help them be able to, feel like I know how to do some of these things at school. I can keep up with what's happening at school. So some of the things you can practice at home to have that feeling of independence and give them some of the skills that they're going to be able to help them be more successful at school to be independent is Putting away a backpack. How do you hang up a backpack? So if you have a child who hangs a backpack on a hook at school, do you have a hook at home that they can practice the fine motor skill of hanging their backpack up? And that way it'll be all set and ready to go for when school starts. Thinking about choosing clothing, right? Especially for our teenagers, that's a really big deal. They want to be comfortable in their clothes. So maybe you've picked out the first 4 or 5 outfits for the school year. Start now, just every day they can be responsible for choosing some of their clothes. That's just a good life skill, but it will carry over into being helpful at school as well as in home. Thinking about cleaning up after themselves. That's expected of students and to do as much as possible when you're at school. So you want to start doing that at home. And that's just a bonus for us, as parents and caregivers. We want our kids to be cleaning up their dishes and, cleaning up after themselves, following simple routines at home. These are all things that, we want to be working with our kids on anyways. But I just wanted to point out today that by really intentionally focusing those are on those at home, you're really helping kids to generalize those skills into their school setting as well, and vice versa. Um, you want to focus on building those skills that are behind, again, school success. Other skills include asking for help, right? So none of these are talking about the academics. We don't need to necessarily focus on reading and writing and math and at home during the summer sometimes. But if we focus on asking for help, following routines, waiting our turn, waiting in line, and just completing any task that we're given, whether it be cleaning up our room or the task of taking out the trash or something that they can do from start to finish, those make a huge difference in the success that your kids can have at school. So, whatever you can do to start working on that can be really helpful. Also, thinking about using some of these tools and strategies that we'll use at school. It's really helpful to use them at home as well. So, checklists, checking off things. Lots of kids get checklists at school. That's a strategy that teachers can use during the school year. You can use that at home as well. Thinking about as we're getting close to, we talked about, close to the start of school. So, maybe your routine in the morning might change. And I showed you some of those visuals for checklists for school. You can also use little picture schedules at home. So in this picture, this is on the refrigerator for this child, and they have just little pictures that we had created with the family from Google Images, and there's also just some written cards too, because if your child's a reader, you may not be able to find the picture, and they may not need the picture; they just need the words. But these are just clipped on to this blue strip of paper here. And then it's the order that things are going to happen. And when they're done, they take them off and they put it in this little finished container that was big magnet was on the back of it, and they put it onto the refrigerator door. And so they're just kind of following through their schedule, so they're get used to like, oh yeah, there's things I got to do throughout the day. Maybe the start of the day is eat breakfast. I think that one was take your medication and then brush your teeth and then get dressed, and then you have to do some morning work. So maybe you have a little tablet or something of some little questions or a coloring sheet or something that could be morning work at home for your kids to do if they enjoy doing some of that at home. You could have a little work time at the beginning of the day just to get them used to like, oh yeah, there's other things I haven't tried to do maybe for a couple months. It's been I don't know how long it's been since they've touched a crayon or a pencil or something, but a lot of our kids, when they don't do it for a couple of weeks even, they kind of forget what that feels like, and we want to start getting them slowly eased into the routine again. You want to think about labeling things. So that's a quick one for families in the beginning of school too, because we're rushing around. We want kids to be as independent as possible to be able to get their own things. So maybe you have a basket in your pantry area or in your kitchen that's, labeled snacks that are acceptable for them to choose from. Or maybe you have labeled where their shoes are or anything that would be helpful for them to be able to locate things as well as put things back where they go. So they start to, remember that there's a place where things go. That can be very helpful. And then offering step-by-step directions as needed. And one of the ways that I like to do step-by-step directions for kids is by using paint chips because I think they are so fun. They have a fun texture and feel, but also the colors you can choose, your child can choose their favorite color. And then you can write down a schedule on a paint chip if you're going to be running errands and you just want them to get used to, at school, it's maybe lunch, recess, math, and special. So they have to follow a sequence of what they're going to do at school. So maybe they're going to start running errands with you. And you can use this anytime during the year with your kids. So maybe you pull out a paint chip and you say, "Okay, today we've got to go to the bank. We're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to go to I don't know, to Target or CVS or wherever else you need to go to, and then we're going to go home, or then we're going to go to McDonald's for lunch. Whatever it is, you could put some of that onto a little paint chip, so when they get in the car, they've got their paint chip and they know the order of where you're going to go to places to run errands. You can also do the step-by-step directions. So maybe you've asked your child to, it's time to make your bed. So we're going to, or to clean their room, sorry. So we're going to clean our room. So first we're going to make our bed, then we're going to take the dirty clothes to the laundry room, then we're going to empty the trash, and then you're going to vacuum your floor. And those are the directions I need you to do. And when you've done all four of those things, I know that you have finished, quote, cleaning your room. We want to prepare for flexibility. That's the next thing that's going to be make a big impact on our school experience, because things change. Unexpected changes happen every day. That's part of life. So how can we help our kids start getting more comfortable, flexibility, or being flexible? We want to practice small changes at home, right? So maybe it's just simply a different seat for dinner. Sometimes we're creatures of habit and we all sit in the same seats at the dinner table. So maybe for something special, we say everyone's going to pick a different seat to sit in, or just maybe two people will sit in a different seat. Thinking about different cups that you might use in case they have like a couple of favorites, but oh, they're all dirty right now. Let's go ahead and let's just use a different cup and just kind of work on that flexibility. Maybe take a different route when you go to the grocery store, or take a different route to the park, or go play at a different park today and try something new, right? But it's still a fun place to go to the park because you love to swing, and there's swings at this park too. Do things in a different order, like change up the order of your activities for the day. So little things like that, little changes can make a big impact on teaching kids to become more flexible. We also want to teach the language of flexibility. So self-talk can really be helpful for kids as they're going through different changes and things that might be, make them feel more uncomfortable. So you can start using phrases, whatever works for your kiddos. But, something like, "Oh, that's okay," or "I can try. I can try it." And I use this as a parent too. Maybe don't like that food, but I'll say, "I'll give it a try. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll like it this time. I'll give it a try." You could say, "Oh, plans change," or "detour ahead." Some kids that phrase makes sense to them. You say "detour ahead," or maybe it's "don't worry, I've got this. We got this. We can do it," right? But anything you can do to give them some positive self-talk that they can take with them. We want to think about emotional readiness too. So that back to school brings lots of feelings, right? And sometimes we have all the feelings at the same time. Kids are excited. A lot of kids love school. They're looking forward to going back to seeing all their friends at school, to have kids to play with, because maybe it's been a little quiet this summer. But they also feel nervous at the same time. Maybe they're going to have a different teacher though, or they're sad because they're not going to be at home as much, or they're going to miss their dog, or they're going to miss mom and dad during the day. They might be curious about what is going to happen. They're that kind of comes in with that excited and nervous, also drives the curiosity though. So it's all happening at the same time. So some of the strategies that we can do to help with those back to school feelings, I actually think that helping kids start creating or making the list of their back to school supplies, you're getting them in the routines, but also they're going to feel like, "Oh, this is a comfort item. I'm going to buy my favorite school supplies. I'm going to get those pens that are my favorite color or have the favorite feel to them." My daughter loves to buy her a new pack of Smensels for the beginning of the school year, right? So picking out a backpack or a special lunchbox for that year, that can be really exciting for kids. And then it builds a happy feeling in there, like, "Oh, I'm going to get to use this new lunchbox at school." Making my shopping list, picking out a new outfit for school, right? Trying to get our first day of school outfit. Maybe you're going to put together a toiletry bag for some of our teens, and that they can pick some of their favorite scents or something, or that, it's a new hairbrush or whatever it is that would make your child feel more comfortable. Maybe it's a toiletry bag that has a favorite pattern on it or something, but anything that will give them things that they can start taking to school now that they're already like excited to use and they're excited to have with them. Before children can learn, they need to feel regulated. So when stress is high, it becomes harder to access sometimes their communication, their problem solving, and their flexibility skills. So our goal right now is to support the calm. We support the calm first, then we're going to again worry about those academics that will come once the first couple of weeks of school jitters are over. So calm bodies will be ready to learn. They'll be ready to learn their new routines. There'll be less stress. So that stress reduces access. If we're stressed, that's a reduction of access to skills that we want our kids to be using at the beginning of the school year. Regulation comes before learning. Just keep that in mind. If we're getting out the door at school, and we are as we leave home, and we're stressed when we're getting out the door because we've been rushing around in the morning, and that happens. That's life, right? And I know that, believe me, at our house, it happens. But the more we can keep a calm beginning to getting onto the bus or to get into the school building, that's just a more opportunity for that regulation to help a calm body be walking into school to be ready to learn. So what can we do to teach and practice calm strategies at home? We can use some deep breathing tools. There's lots of things online that you can look up. There's like the triangle breathing, where you breathe up for 3 and you trace the triangle, take a deep breath in, you hold it, and then you go out and go across your triangle. So you're just slowing down their breathing. There's sensory supports like worry stones. Sometimes the kids want to carry those in their pockets, or they could put them in their backpack. You could do a picture with deep breathing where you smell the flower and blow out the candle slowly. And then another one is having that calm space at home. Because I also know that sometimes our kids, we're going to be prepared for, they're going to be higher levels of stress just by being at school. It's natural, it's going to happen. But when they come home, they've had people talking with them all day at school, much more than what they may have been used to during the summer. And so they're going to need a little bit of time to kind of regulate that back and forth now between the school and home environment. So you want to already maybe have established a calm space in your home. For some kids, it's their bedroom, and they might need a little bit more time there after school where they just want to lay down and chill for, however much time it takes them, 10 minutes, a half an hour, whatever it is. For some kids, and this worked well in our family, is we have a tent. And so my child would go into her tent after school, and she could just kind of have some special toys in there. She just needed a little calmer, safer space for a little while. I needed to not talk and ask, "How was your day? How was your day? Tell me all the things you did at school today. What'd you have for lunch?" Da, da, da. She needed a good half hour before we engage in some of that conversation. So she knows that her tent is the safe place where when she's there, everyone knows kind of she needs to decompress and nobody's going to be bothering her. Create a calm plan. So what helps your child? And what signs tell you that they might need support? So start noticing, and your kids the best. So when you see them, if they come in from school and they're stomping their feet, or they drop their backpack hard on the ground, ooh, that's a sign we might need to regulate before we go into bombarding with questions about how our day was. So think about what your calm plan is going to be for home. Goodbyes are often one of the hardest parts of the school day, right? Right at the beginning, like I said, it's coming in, that transition from home to school can be hard. So if we keep them consistent and predictable, that will help our kids. We want to keep short, confident goodbyes are sometimes easier than those prolonged, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you exits that can last a little while. So you want to go ahead and think about that now, how that transition and how that handoff is going to look at school. So practice maybe some shorter separations where if you have a babysitter, or you have if you've got a couple of caregivers in the family, one person's going to leave, and you practice saying, "Bye, I'll see you in a couple of hours. I'm going to run some errands," and just start doing that and really kind of letting your kids know, Parents always come back. Daniel Tiger said it best when he says grown-ups come back. So we want to practice that. Consistent goodbye routines. This is how we handle it. And then sometimes those transitional objects can be helpful. So maybe if you have the worry stone in your pocket, that's something that the kids, maybe you kiss it, they kiss it, we put it in the backpack, and they can take it back and forth to school. I had one little kid that I worked with one time at school where she had a little beanie cat. And that cat stayed in her backpack. That was the rule. Kitty did not come out during the school day, but made her feel safe knowing that Kitty was in the backpack and would ride the bus to school and back to school with her. So you can think about what is going to help your child with their separation and transitions. We want to think about sensory readiness. So, knowing that kids are going to be experiencing noises and crowds and smells and lighting that they maybe haven't seen for a few weeks or months. So, how can you help them? We can go out into the community as you are able to with your family, going to, like I said, maybe some different playgrounds or playgrounds where you might meet a couple of the little friends from school so they can start remembering what it's like to kind of join with everybody. Going to some of those stores, waiting in line, cafeterias or other restaurants that you could eat at. Think about things that will mimic what they're going to be experiencing when they get back to school. Think about creating a sensory toolkit for your kids, such as using headphones or their favorite fidgets, if they're a gum chewer and gum is allowed at school. We need to check on that. What can you put together for them to know that they could take some of these items to school with them, or you're prepared? Do you've tried them at home, and then you'll have something to talk about with the teacher as far as what's been helpful for your students, because sometimes these preferences change over time, and the school just may not know what your kids really gotten into something over the summer, so you want to let them know about that. You want to think about creating plans for those more maybe more unstructured or more personal moments in school. So creating a plan for kids about when to go to their locker. That's a really tough one sometimes for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And so this is something that if they're going to use lockers, you could talk to them about when to go to the bathroom, which bathroom to use. Like I said, some of them might be more echoey than others, or there's a reason why you want to use this one more than the other one. Will you carry a water bottle with you? How much should you be drinking? How are you going to manage those passing periods? Because that's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people in the hallway. I always talk about, hey, remember when you're in the hallway, if you need help, you can go, look for this teacher in this hallway, or remember so and so's class is right here. So giving kids some of those places to go when they feel overwhelmed. Who should you go talk to? When should you go to the bathroom? Because some of our kids forget and don't go to the bathroom, and you might need to write that or let their teachers know. My child will need reminders for going to the bathroom or something. Those are important points to be considering. And I believe that sometimes kids need to get their feet on the ground and feel how long it takes to walk from class to class, especially if you're in a bigger building and you're moving around more in the building. And the teachers will all do their absolute best to help the kids get oriented with their class and everything at school. But nevertheless, if you can get into a school early and walk that route and walk those, not just the one day that's the back to school day, this is where the pre-planning comes in. Maybe in April or May, you write in that my child will have 2 ESY days at the end of the summer where they'll be able to come into the school for an hour or even just a half an hour and just walk their schedule early if possible. You can design all kinds of programs with your school. Just work as a team, but getting your kids used to moving, because they may not have moved quite that much during the summer from place to place because our houses are just not as big as the school. Thinking about school readiness, school's about relationships. It's all about, success comes when we can belong with a group, we can make connections, we can participate in activities. And so you want to practice some of those social skills at home. So make sure that your kids are getting out during the summer and they're greeting their neighbors. They're ordering food at a restaurant. They're taking turns and you're playing games at home, right? Not just video games, but board games can be extremely beneficial for kids. Or if you have younger ones and you're looking at preschool, kindergarten age, what are some of the little basic, tossing balls back and forth, or playing with potato hat or something, but are you taking turns and working together? Because sometimes our kids like to do a lot of solitary activities during the summer and they enjoy solitary experiences. which is fine. But we also know that when they go into a school situation, they're all of a sudden going to be with a bunch of other people. And so we want to make sure that we're still trying to give them those experiences to practice at home with that involve other people. Partnering with the school is important. So families and schools are partners and both bring important expertise, right? So thinking about, can you again work in some of those visits to the school, whether it be a back to school night or whether it be a couple of days before even school begins? Can you visit classrooms? Is your child familiar with the bus and or the car rider arrival and dismissal spots? And sometimes those change from year to year, and you need to know about that. And especially if that's going to throw your kiddo off, because for 4 years they've walked in the same door, and now this year they're going to walk in a different door at the same school. You want to make sure you've practiced walking in that new door a few times. Thinking about going to see the cafeterias and the lockers and the restrooms, and now know where the office is, know where the counselors are, the nurse, who's your safe person, who do you like to go see and say good morning to? Are you meeting the staff? And this can look different, right? This could be an in-person visit to say hello. This could also be a quick Zoom visit, a virtual meeting. You could do pictures. You could also ask people to send videos. I've had that for a couple of students where a new teacher came in and they just weren't able to align schedules so the kiddos could get in there and meet them in person. But the teachers were kind enough to send a 30-second video to the family just to say, hey, this is the room. I'm setting it up for you. Can't wait to see you next week. And I'll meet you in person and go from there. Or I'll see you at back to school night. But then that your child can watch that video a couple of times over, over the week before back to school night. So they're not so surprised when they see this person at back to school night for the first time. You want to think about creating maybe a one-page introduction letter for the new teacher or for the new classroom that you're going to. But they have a lot, or they should, unless you're in a brand new school situation. And there are so many templates out there on the internet for, this is my child, these are their services, these are, lots of information that would be in the IEP about your child. What I would encourage you to do, either in addition to that or instead of that, is focus on maybe a quick one-page letter of strengths and interests and what you did this summer that will give that teacher a way to connect with your child. So that teacher then could say, hey, I heard you went to Disney World this summer. What was your favorite ride? I heard you went to the beach this summer. Can you tell me what you loved about the beach? And that will give them some connection or, things to talk about to start building rapport with your child. Because the most important thing that the teachers are going to be doing those first couple of weeks is building relationships with any new teachers or any new students that they have. So help to facilitate that relationship building. Ask questions too of the school. So what's it gonna look like? Be prepared to, if you're not sure, always speak up and ask questions. If you have new teachers or a new TOR, you want to know, how will communication occur? How will the gen ed teacher be communicating with the classroom parents? Do I have the right apps? Do I know how information is going to be coming, right? That's super important. So make sure you're confident in how to communicate with the school. And how can we work together? So these are all things that you may send an email the first week of, or leading up to it, or some of your teachers may just have, you may meet them for the first time on back to school night, but that's going to help you as a parent. Once you get all that information, you're going to feel much more confident yourself in helping your children ease into the school year and transition back into school, because you're going to feel like you're in the know as well. And I know that feeling. I know that's very important. You want to share supports between home and school. So making sure that if you ask, can I email you pictures? Can you email me examples of supports that you've used with my child that I can maybe find helpful at home? That's always very beneficial. So when we think about the transition back to school, I know we've talked a lot about maybe the couple of weeks leading up to it, but I also wanted to take just a few minutes to address the fact that the beginning of school and the transitioning back to school, again, it doesn't happen the first day of school. It happens a few weeks before and honestly a few weeks after school. It takes us a while to get into the groove of the new school year. The first month is all about adjustment. It's not about perfection. So we want to make sure that the first few weeks of school, what we can do as families is support our students to have them have a comfortable transition by giving them predictable mornings as much as we possibly can. Giving them a little extra time in the morning. So that means as an adult, we have to sometimes get up 15 minutes early just to make sure we've got a little cushion there for ourselves, if possible. Um, Maybe there's going to be an adjustment period and we just know that that's going to happen. And so you want to think about maybe you want to make some adjustments at home to account for that. And we're really going to focus on our routines. What does success really look like? Everybody, that's defined differently for every child, every family. So a successful start to the school year might be for your family that my child got on the bus, my child entered the classroom, my child stayed the whole day, or my child tried something new. So you decide for your family what is success look like and be realistic about, we are not going to maybe accomplish all of the things the first week of school, but we're going to keep getting it better. So don't be discouraged. We want to celebrate those small wins, right? Every success builds confidence. And we're doing all these things to help with that. And sometimes it takes our kids a few years of these new adjustments to a new school year and to make it better. It might be harder for our preschoolers and our kindergartners and our first graders, but by the time they get to fourth and fifth grade, they are rocking this transition into the new school year. So just make sure you know that to celebrate your small wins for your family. We also need to support caregivers. You need your support, right? We all do. So caregivers need a transition plan too. So consider how the school routine is going to impact your routine. Maybe you've been getting up and going on to work and you haven't had to get your children ready because the other parent is kind of trading off, or you've got a babysitting situation or something. So how is this going to change your routine in the morning? Can you set up an afternoon or evening routine that helps your child and that will kind of facilitate your child and your family's lifestyle, because it might change as well for all of you. Set up a family calendar or a schedule and individualize it if needed. Do whatever works best for you, but make sure that you're taking into consideration your needs as well. Your calm helps their calm. So children often borrow our confidence. So when parents feel confident, and sometimes we do have to fake it till we make it. And sometimes we say to our kids, I'm not sure, but I know I can do this. That's going to help them, the kids feel confident that I can do this when I walk in the building. I got this. We're not preparing children for day one. We are preparing them for a successful year, right? So think about that. So what you are building the foundation of, this is going to be a good fourth grade year and we're going to have a successful year, right? This is just the start. For those of you who are going into high school, or maybe even your 18 to 22-year-old programs, right? For the first time, because your kids are getting older. We're getting really excited that, this is big deal. You're getting older. You're moving up in the world. You're going to have new experiences and things. So this is just day one. We're not going to do it all. And sometimes I think we set the kids up for like all the bells and whistles of day one, and it's exciting, but we don't want to overwhelm them either. We just want to kind of help ease that gentle beginning. I tell everyone, I hope you have a gentle start to your school year. So remember that the goal isn't a perfect first day, but the goal is to help your child feel safe and confident and ready to participate. Every visual that you can create, every routine that you can practice, every moment of encouragement, and every partnership you build lays another brick in the foundation for a successful school year. Celebrate the small victories, trust the process, and it is very much a process, but trust it and remember that progress is made one step at a time. So if you need more help, support, ideas, there are a lot of visual supports and there's a lot of information on both the Indiana Resource Center for Autism website and the Hands in Autism website. So I put both of the links that are there in your PowerPoints that you can Google and look them up. And I also know that InSource is there for you. My family has benefited from the support of InSource in the past, and we are a big supporter of InSource. So make sure that if you are having lots of, or if you have questions or you need support, that you do turn to InSource for any kind of support in that manner. So, all right, with that, I will turn it back over to Jill and Michelle.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was so good. Just real quickly, I just want to comment on a couple things because we
Yeah.
know I never can get out of here without commenting. But I really, really, really appreciate you talking about those small wins because we forget about them. And I don't have young children anymore. Michelle does, but I'm a new grandma.
Oh,
So, but it is something that we do need to remember are those small wins, and we also need to make sure that we are celebrating those successes because you even had on one of your slides, completely went out of my head, about how the kids are they take our confidence and
mhm.
project that on themselves, and then they have that confidence. And, whenever we build them up with those successes, when we acknowledge those successes to them, that even enhances that even more. And I think that's a lot of what our kids, they need that. They need to know. And especially starting back after these breaks, it's hard. I mean, it's hard on us as adults. I mean, here at InSource, we know we're gearing up for the beginning of school. So, I mean, we're the adults and we're already like, oh, it's coming, it's coming. So being a child, it's a rough time. It's a rough transition. And, I just really appreciate you bringing the information that you brought. So thank you so much.
You're
I
welcome.
didn't have any questions that popped up out on our Facebook Live. So there's no questions out there. Michelle?
I just wanted to emphasize on a part where, I know we talk about preparing our children, making them feel safe and comfortable and, all these visuals. But I think there's a lot of us, like for me, I think I am learning while my kids are learning,
Hmm.
because I used to be like, okay, let's just, deal with it and let's just go with the flow and let's just do this. And so I have littles, and 9 and 7, which are my youngest ones. And so now I have to say, okay, they don't do it the same way I do. So I really need to do those visuals. I need to really be like, hey, you're going to be okay. This is scary, or, this is new, but you can do it. And, and I'm not used to that. And it's hard for me as a parent. So if you're one of those parents that are like, oh my gosh, why do I have to make a list, or why do I have to do this? Believe me, it works. Cause I was like, okay, I'll make a list for them, a visual schedule. And it's like magic. I'm like, okay, maybe this would have worked for me too. But so yeah, I mean, it's just funny the way we're learning to as parents. So
Great point.
And
mhm.
I was one of those parents that I wrote on the bathroom mirror because I wanted to make sure that
Uh,
he had, all of those steps that he needed. And it
yeah,
was nothing for our bathroom mirror to be just
yeah,
covered in stuff.
Yeah.
But,
uh-huh.
Yeah.
those lists do help. And,
Yeah.
any
Yes.
time that you can give them any of those added little things, it does
Hmm.
help.
Yeah. The
And,
Yeah,
calendar has changed our world. Yeah.
yeah, and
yeah.
it takes some stress off of us as adults.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
I mean, anything that can make our time easier too, absolutely. But yeah, list.
Hmm.
I live by. I've got list after list. I've got notebook after notebook that's got
Same.
everything.
Oh yeah. I will never go back. Never.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, thank you, Amy. We really appreciate you
Welcome.
being here, taking the time out of your day to give this wonderful information. And I know a lot of parents are scrambling to get everything ready for their kids. So hopefully they found some good information on here and feel a little bit more calm and saying, hey, I could probably use this. So, but yeah, but thank you,
Yeah.
Amy.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's always a process. Like I said, you learn a little bit this year and then you're like, "Oh man, we could have done
Yeah.
that." And then so then you'll be ready for next year. And we always add in one more
Mhm.
thing, each year as we learn and grow together as parents
Mhm.
and things. So yeah, you can't do it all right out of the gate. It's just
Nope.
it's a journey
Yeah,
all through. from preschool all the way till 22, right? And then, whatever the future holds for adults, we're just always learning how to support our kids. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. They didn't come with manuals, but we could make one.
Yes. Yes.
All righty. Well,
That would be
thank you
nice.
both so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. Amy, as always, excellent information, and you're just an absolute jewel to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Michelle, thank you so much for being my co-host. And I don't have any questions. I haven't seen anything pop up in our chat box, so I guess we will say goodbye for today.
Okay,
Yep.
best wishes on a gentle school year for everyone, to the gentle start.
And
Thank
Amy,
you.
congratulations and good luck on your next adventure.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great
Bye-bye.
afternoon.